Finish each day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities, no doubt, crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day, and you shall begin it serenely and with too high a spirit to be encumbered with your old nonsense. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I know you're probably wondering, why am I giving you a motivational speech? Well, I'm here to talk about homelessness. Homelessness in the United States alone has grown rapidly, and the numbers are increasing. In San Francisco, 800,000 people populate the city. Out of those 800,000 people, 12,500 are homeless, and 5,000 are without any type of shelter. In New York, there are 8 million people, and out of those 8 million people, there are 38,000 homeless people. This is a huge number. Why are people homeless? I'm going to explain to you some of the myths and then give you the facts. And then I have a story that's horrific, but it's the facts, and it still remains the same. What are we doing to change this? At least we can motivate people. Housing poverty is some of the top reasons why people are homeless. And for some people, the only way to work is to panhandle. The myth is it wrong to give money to people on the street because it is always a scam or they will use the money for drugs? Not all panhandlers are homeless, but almost all are poor and in need. Whether or not to give money to people panhandling on the streets is a personal decision. But there is certainly nothing wrong with giving money to people in need. Is it their fault they're homeless is another myth. Well, the fact is, 3 decades of research and experience show that people become homeless for a lot of reasons. A loss of a job or lowered wages, healthcare crisis, increased rent, a family emergency, or even landlord bullying. This has been going on since the Great Depression, since World War II, and since the 70s, and it has not stopped. The myth, can people afford television or smartphones? Then they aren't really poor. Well, goods like these have become not only free but affordable, and things like food and housing are essentially going up. People own these because often it's the only way that they can connect to the world. Phones and internet are critical to securing employment and maintaining it. With ever-advancing technology, it is an imperative that this vulnerable group not be left behind. Jill May died homeless, helpless, and empty in a parking lot, dosed with gasoline and burned alive. May was 48. She was a homeless prostitute and a crack addict, struggling to clean up her life when her long-time partner and father of her 3 children, Ricky Smith, owed $150 to a drug dealer. Then the drug dealer came back to the sidewalk where they slept at, and only to find May beat her up and stripped her naked. The next morning, police ran into May, dazed and beat up, and asked her what happened, and because she reported what had happened and gave the name of the drug dealer, that report was then brought to the drug dealer's attention by maybe a parole officer or something. However, she was known because there were several witnesses. And so she called this snitching. And because May snitched on her, the next day the drug dealer was furious over what she regarded as May's snitching, came back with fellow drug dealer, kidnapped May, and drove her into a parking lot at Candlestick Park, picking up a can of gas on the way. Once there, prosecutors said she forced a weeping May to kneel on the pavement while she poured gas over her. Then she lit a sock and threw it on her. May was burned beyond recognition. The only gift is a portion of thyself, Ralph Waldo Emerson. If you are poor, you are essentially an illness, an accident, or a paycheck away from living on the streets. Homelessness is a barrier to reunification for families. At least 30% of children in foster care could return home if their parents had access to housing. How many of you have seen news of some shelters having bed bugs? This is horrible. And homeless mothers have it worse. They have 3 times the rate of PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder, 36%, and twice the rate of drug and alcohol dependence. And they have experienced severe and physical and sexual abuse during their lifetime. Most of these abuses were perpetuated by their intimate partner. Others sleep in cars and send their children to stay with relatives to avoid shelter life. These people are homeless. Please help. They're addicted, have domestic violence, mental illness, lack of affordable health care. Every spirit builds itself a house, and beyond its house a world, and beyond its world a heaven. Know then that the world exists for you. For you is the phenomenon perfect. What we are, that only can we see. All that Adam had, all that Caesar could, you have and can do. Adam called his house heaven and earth. Caesar called his house Rome. You perhaps call yours a cobbler's trade, 100 acres of plowed land, or scholar's garret. Yet line for line and point for point, your dominion is great and theirs. Though without fine names, build therefore your own world. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I leave you with that quote because it shows dignity, it shows care, compassion, respect, and the presence to get out there and speak to these people. I spoke to them, and they're pretty much just like us. Homelessness in the United States.